BML History Series, AS British History Part 2. How did the Triangle of Trade work? Well, goods were transported from Britain to its ports along the West African coastline. These goods would mainly be brass, copper, weapons and medicine, which were then traded with the local African tribes and kingdoms for slaves. Another method for taking slaves was to raid the villages and kidnap the entire population. These groups would commonly consist of already kidnapped slaves and 1 to 2 white slave drivers or capturers. The slaves would then be taken to the forts before their long and arduous journey to the Americas. In most cases, ships that would normally be only able to handle about 50 crew members had between 400 and 800 slaves crammed inside. Around half of the slaves would die on the journey. Most, having never been on a ship, were killed by either illness or disease. Once they arrived, they would be sold or carted off to the various plantations. The death rate of the slaves was 1/3 of every slave per year, creating a high demand for slaves to replace the plantation losses. The goods produced by these slaves were then transported to Britain to be sold in return for the brass, copper and guns, or money to buy the slaves with, and the cycle started again. The Triangle of Trade was very efficient and was able to sustain the mass consumer market, and as a consequence of this, by 1730 Britain had become the largest slave trader in the world. Between 1690 and 1870, British ships had transported around 3 million slaves. Some historians have argued that the transatlantic slave trade fueled the Industrial Revolution, and there is merit to this argument, since this increased population and extra workforce created a mass consumer market that could be sustained. The population could stay and look for jobs. For example, working at the textile and new food manufacturers that had begun to spring up in the late 1750s. Where were these American and the West Indian colonies? St. Kitts, established in 1624, Barbados, established in 1627, Nevis, established in 1628, Antigua in 1632, Montserrat, established in 1632, and Jamaica, established in 1655. What were the jobs for the slaves on these colonies? Slave driver, a person who uses a whip to forcefully motivate the slave to do their work. The slave driver would be either white or black, and it was considered the lowest of the low in terms of jobs. Field worker or marginal worker, someone who works the field picking and planting the goods to be transported. This is what the majority of the slaves that were taken and bought were used for. Domestic servants, slaves who worked inside the house as butlers and maids, providing house service for the supposed master of the house. The most important good was sugar, which was used in everyday life as an ingredient or even as wages, which meant that the sugar plantations took priorities for the slaves. This video was created by Link Studios for bestmonkeylearning.weebly.com. To see more of these videos, either visit our website at www.bestmonkeylearning.weebly.com, a link will be posted in the description below, or visit our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.